Well, we're back again, and today we're going to talk about market systems. And what we're looking at is every country in the world, right? We got a whole bunch of countries in the world. All of them have a system to make sure that people get what they want and what they need, okay? Now, we call these basic economic systems because we're going to be taking a look at two, and they're basically the extremes. What the book calls the market system and the command system, or in reality is capitalism and socialism. Remember, socialism is not a political party when we talk about it in economics. Socialism is a form of a market system so that we can go ahead and get everybody what they need. So let's delve into that. First off, go ahead and grab out this handout, right? Remember, it should be in the module, so you can go ahead and just pull that up if you need to. If you can print it, that'd be great, because you may want to be filling this out. So the whole concept here is understanding that each of these economic systems has 5 major goals. Now, you go from textbook to textbook or expert to expert, and these 5 will show up in the top 10 on what everybody talks about. But in this text, we're looking at these are the top 5. The first one is we want to make sure we fully employ all of our resources. Remember, we're looking about being efficient. And that's the kind of key in why we're studying economics. Again, remember, efficiently using our resources. So all of our land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability, we want to make sure we are using them to the fullest extent. We don't want to waste any. The second is we want to be efficient in how we use them. Remember, we talked about this earlier when we looked at the production possibilities curve. We're looking at how productively efficient we can be. And that means the least cost in production. Now, this takes us to another worksheet. This actual table is in your book, but I've kind of modified it a little bit so that you can see some of the stuff that was in the book that was talking but wasn't showing on the worksheet. You can see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look. This actually is the worksheet itself, and it's missing some information on it that you're going to need, but we'll go ahead and put it all together later. First thing I want you to know is that what this worksheet is showing you is 3 different ways, technique 3, 2, and 1, to combine our resources, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability, to produce, in this case, this bar of soap that apparently is worth 15 bucks, so it must be a really good bar of soap. So that's all it's looking at, is it's showing you these things. When we went back to the production possibilities curve, we called it production, production, production. We had 4 different production combinations. All right, we had 0 of capital goods and 100% of consumer goods, and then we had 0 consumer goods and 100% capital goods. Those were 2 of the production processes we could choose from. This, instead of using production 1, 2, and 3, they just use technique 1, 2, and 3. Or you could look at it as being production technique. Basically, all it is the process on how we do it. So we then go ahead and we take our resources that we're going to do. We put them on the one side, talks about resources. We've got our 3 different production techniques that we break them down into. And then we look at the price. Right? This price per unit is talking about for every bar of soap that we make, it costs $2 of labor, $1 of land, $3 of capital, and $3 of entrepreneurial ability. So that's what that column's telling you. It's giving you a cost of, when you put them in these 3 techniques, how much the production cost is. Now remember, this goes with our profit formula. Profit equals revenue minus cost. Here's the cost. This is what this is showing you. So let's take a look at production technique number 1. What we're looking at is it's saying we need 4 units of labor, 1 unit of land, 1 unit of capital, and 1 unit of entrepreneurial ability. Every unit of labor costs you $2. So 2 times 4, that's where we get the $8. 1 times 1 gives you $1. 3 times 1 gives you $3. 3 times 1 gives you $3. So that's how that goes together. Then production technique number 2, notice a slight difference in how we put our resources together. So there's a different cost in here. In this case, we're only using 2, so that's only $4 and so forth as we go down. Then our last one, production technique number 3, again, different combination. So here's where we go ahead and do that. And then we just add them all together. This one costs us $15 total, this one costs us $13 total, and this one costs us $15 total. Here's where we then go back to the profit formula here. Remember, here's our cost part right here. So we take a look because we want least cost. So between 15, 15, and 13, 13 is going to be our least cost. So here's where we're going to use production technique number 2. And then when we put it in our formula, because remember, revenue, we're getting $15 for every bar of soap. Our $13 cost, we're using that production technique. Why? Because it gives us $2 in profit. If we used either one of the other two, our cost would be 15 and our profit would be 0. So this is what we're looking at. So we got production technique number 2. Now, something happens. This is as you go through that reading in the table, it's saying labor cost change. Something happens here. So what we're going to do on our table is we're just going to go ahead and say, hey, labor dropped from, instead of $2 a unit, it's now 50 cents a unit. So none of these changed, so we don't have to change any of this stuff, but we do have to change the part here in labor. So we do the math and we come up with $2, $1.50. Now we go ahead and add up the costs again. And lo and behold, $9, $10, $13.50. Now we were using technique 2, but which one is now the least cost? You got it, technique number 1. We go ahead, put this in there, and notice we now have a $9 cost, $15 revenue. We have $6 profit now because one of our resources changed in cost and changed in our favor. Now, here is where we get to the next part, and this isn't part of the table, but it's in there. One of the things you are supposed to do is, as a manager out there, you're always supposed to be looking, can I make it better, faster, and cheaper? How can I combine my resources to make that happen? And this is where this happens on this table. You, with your mental labor, remember that's one of those resources, that's the one we're stretching in college now. Using your mental labor, have come up with a different combination of resources in a different process that can still make that $15 bar of soap with the same quality and quantity that you could before. So we end up, here is your new combinations. What's not shown here is the actual procedure that these are using, nor do we have it for this one, and this one, so it's just assumed there's a procedure there. So you got a new procedure with a different combination. You go ahead, you put them in, you add up the cost, and all of a sudden, we're looking at $7.50. We go ahead and use technique number 4 because now it's the cheapest of all 4 of these because our profit, now we went from $6 to $7.50. Now, for all of you microeconomics students, here's something you might want to take a look at. Right? Excuse me. We went ahead and we've got our profit now of $7.50. Our soap we're still selling for 15 bucks. Now here's something, and in microeconomics you go in a little bit more of it. What happens if we just decided to sell our soap for $14? All right. Well, we did this, and we took a look at our profit formula. We'd end up with, here's our profit of $6.50. So we got profit and revenue. Notice we never touched cost yet. When you're going, well, gee, I lost $1 of profit because I did this. But now let's go back to the supply and demand. What happens when price goes down, like we did from 15 to 14? Price goes down, demand goes up. So even though you lost $1 in profit, you may have made more because you now have more customers. And if you make a heck of a lot more customers here, your total profit for all of the bars of soap that you sold is going to go up. Even though you dropped, or even though your profit level went down $1 for each individual one, because you dropped it, you got so many more people buying soap that your total profit goes up. This is one of the key things, and in microeconomics we go in and talk more about that. All right. Now the thing about it is there is an opportunity cost every time we change from production technique to production technique. And this talks about our concept of creative destruction. All right, this is where it comes in. Because we have a process that we're using, and all of a sudden we have a new process. And the new process basically destroys the old one. So here's the way you put these words together. You created something new, it destroys all of the past. And this is what we mean. Let's kind of say we got people that went ahead and created cell phones. Yay! All right, we all have one of those. But what happened to all of the folks that had, the phones that have the actual cord on it that you pick up, that you got to go ahead and hit the rotary thing and that kind of stuff? Can't put it in your back pocket. These went away. It would be the same thing like the old way. We're using production technique number 1, $9 cost. Production technique number 4, the way you came up with, is only $7.50 in cost. People using this one are going to go out of business if they don't switch to the new one. Same thing that we had going on here. You can make a lot of money or you can go bankrupt. Either way, it's your way to go ahead and choose how you want to do it. But this is what we mean by creative destruction. Okay? It destroys the new process that we created, destroys all the old ones. In other words, our new process here destroys all of these old ones. We can't use them because you can't compete. So this is what you're looking to do. You can go ahead and keep doing the old way, or you can go ahead and figure out, I got to work with the new way, or I'm going to go out of business. So that's what we're looking at. So the worksheet should end up looking like this, giving you an idea of, here's our least cost method. We're still producing $15 worth of soap. We did make the one change here, that the resource price changed from $2 to 50 cents, and that's where we added this 4th column, right, our techniques. So the other one, if you recall from our production possibilities curves, we also want to be allocatively efficient. We want to make sure everything we sell, people buy, like the corn. We had the customers here, we had the corn there, and as we worked with the price and quantity, at the end of the day, we had no inventory and we had no customers with money saying we want stuff. So everything we made, we sold at a certain price, that equilibrium point. So that's what we're looking at. We talk about allocatively efficient. So least cost, most desired, that's our efficiency when we're looking at that. So that's common economic goal number 2. The invisible hand is really focused in making sure this happens. All right. Third one, economic growth. Raise our standard of living. Remember, here's where we are today, right here. How much we're spending, what we're living in, what we're driving in, what we do for holidays and vacations and stuff. 10 years from now, we want more of it. So we're going to raise that standard of living. Economic goal number 4, and this is probably the one that is most argued about, but when you take a look at it, it's why are we even arguing? fair distribution of income. Should you have an equal opportunity to make as much as everybody, or should everybody make the same amount? Right? That's a very key thing when you start talking about it. When we talk about equal opportunity for all, we should all have the opportunity to make as much as we want or as little as we want. There are some people that are very happy with their job. They could be making a whole lot more money doing something else, but they'd rather have this amount of money and have a lot of fun rather than that a lot of money and not be very happy at all. Or equal amount for everybody, right? Bill Gates makes a whole lot of money. And I am sure Bill would not want to have the same paycheck as I do. Now, I wouldn't mind having the same paycheck he does, but when we talk about equal amount for all, everybody would have to have the same amount, which means we're going to divide all of Bill's money into everybody else. So this is the question, and this is the argument. Opportunity or amount. And this has to do, again, with choices that we make. Now, last, number 5 is stable pricing level. Now, we get into this in macroeconomics when we talk about monetary policy. But really, what we're looking at when we say this is businesses and people can't plan anything if the stability of the markets aren't okay. Now, let me give you an example of that. You're getting ready to go on a vacation. You're going to drive. So you're driving from Florida to Washington State. A lot of gas involved. A lot of hotels might be involved. So you start taking a look and you go, well, gas this month and hotel expenses this month. Because what you got to do is you're going to put together a budget so you can figure out, hey, I've got enough money to get there and get back and I don't run out and I can have fun. But what if gas prices this month are $4? Next month they're $3. The month after that they're $7. The month after that they're $3 a gallon. And hotels go for $50 a night to $80 a night to $200 a night to $40 a night. You have no idea where those prices are. So you have no idea how to do a budget so that you can make sure you got enough money to get there and get back and have fun. So you don't go. All right, that's the same thing when businesses decide whether they're going to expand. They have to have a stable market, stable price level so they can go ahead and figure that out. Kind of has to do a little bit with inflation. But stable price level for planning, whether it's a business or individual, is number 5. So we got our 5 common goals. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 5 questions that every economic system has to answer. Now, this is on the right-hand side of that worksheet. The first one is, what goods and services are we going to produce? What are we going to make? Right? The second one, how will the goods and services be produced? Businesses should be deciding this because that's where the invisible hand comes in. Remember, full production, so we're looking at efficiencies, productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. That's what we mean by how will they be produced. Right? We're looking at least cost all the time because, again, businesses work on that profit formula. Okay? We took a look at it in our production possibilities curve. When we're looking at allocative efficiency or the right mix, remember there is one point on that whole production possibilities curve that we are also at the right mix. So that's what we're looking for. Again, we want to spend the least amount to get the most revenue so we can make profit. We stay in business. Third, who gets the goods and services? Normally, the person that has the money gets the goods and services. Now, the next 2 are a little bit, going a little bit more in depth. The fourth one is, how will the country's economic system accommodate change? Or in other words, will it make it easy or hard to change your product line? And lastly, how will the country system promote that progress? Why would you change? You change because there's some kind of an incentive to get you to change, like maybe making more profit. So here's the 5 questions that went along with the 5 goals. This is what your worksheet should look like. And we started earlier talking about choice, scarcity, opportunity, cost, and nothing is free. You notice in this last one we added incentive, because it's incentive that goes ahead and is going to drive what people do. Whether it's somebody giving you something, we call that an external incentive, or something that drives you, we call that an internal incentive. But that's the next of the key words that we add with this. Now we do have 2 basic types of economic systems. We have the market system and the command system, capitalism and socialism. All right, and those are the 2 we're going to focus on, because those are the ones that are in reality through the rest of the world. Here's the handout you're going to need for it. Okay? And it's real simple on identifying which one of the systems our country might fall in. The first one is, who owns the resources? It's going to be owned by one of 2 groups, the people or government. And then the coordinating activity. Remember those 5 questions we said every economic system had to answer, these right here? These are the ones that are going to go ahead and you have to answer. So either the market is going to do this, in other words, the invisible hand, or government. So you got people or government, and you have invisible hand or government. Remember, invisible hand is another concept for people. So let's take a look how this works. Let's focus on the command system works. Under socialism, the government, and in this case we call it public ownership of all resources. In other words, if they decide it's 2 in the afternoon and it's time to go cut sugar cane, and they say everybody going to colleges that are offering bachelor's degrees and below, you now all go out to the fields to cut sugar cane, you have to go, because the government owns your labor and all of the other resources that works with that. Who answers those 5 questions? The government does again. The government decides what we make. The government decides how we make it. The government decides who gets it. The government decides how we work with the system to make it better, faster, and cheaper. And the government decides what incentives or how they're going to promote progress, make that change happen. So that's on the command side, all right, socialism. On the market side, or capitalism, people own all of our resources. All the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability are owned by we the people. And markets, through the invisible hand, answer those questions. What do we make? Whatever people want, as long as we can make a profit. How do we make it? We decide the processes. The businesses decide how they're going to do that. Who's going to get it? The ones that earn the most money are going to get the most stuff. How are we going to accommodate change? Well, we're going to always be looking for better, faster, and cheaper ways of doing things. Why? Because of number 5, promote progress. Now, the problem with this is there is no perfect market system or perfect capitalism, and there is no perfect socialism. It's a combination of the 2. The United States, we like to say, oh, the United States is a capitalist system. Well, actually, we're not in the top. We're in the top 10 of the most capitalist systems in the world, or freest economic systems. But we're number 10. Okay, so, oh, excuse me, number 18, not number 10, number 18. But we go ahead and this happens because we have a lot of government ownership of our resources. Think about it. Federal parks, who owns them? Government. State parks, who owns them? Government. City parks, who owns them? Government. Military installations, police departments, fire departments. All of this stuff is owned by the government. So just that one example shows that we're not a capitalist system. But there's a lot of other examples that show we're also not a socialist system. So every one of the systems in the world are what we call a mixed economy because we don't have total public and total private ownership of things. Some is market, some are done by planning committees. Markets, we might want to go ahead and make sure we have a lot of food in the supermarket. Why? Because that's what we eat. What's in the supermarket? The stuff that we buy all the time. Planning committee, in our case, we might not want to go ahead and have private companies sell our best fighter plane to China, for instance. So we'll go ahead and we'll back here and we'll go ahead and say, all right, these we're going to take some control over, and you can only do this with them. This part here, you can have just about as much control as you want, as long as it passes whatever safety regulations we have. Okay? Because remember, there are safety regulations for food and stuff. So we've got mixed economies. That's what they all are right here. The thing is if you went ahead and took a scale, are you closer to this end with capitalism being total, or are you closer to this end where socialism is the norm? That's what we're taking a look at. Where do we follow under this thing? So, if you take a look at heritage.org index ranking, this is the 2018 rankings. 2019 rankings aren't out yet. But this is what we have here. Of the 180 nations that are in this system, North Korea is number 180. They are the closest to a socialist command system that we have in the world. They are the most repressed economy in the world. The next two, and in no particular order, are Cuba and Venezuela. And you can see how they're working out. Going along, we have China. They rank at number 110. They are mostly unfree. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and you can go ahead and do some research. You'll find out that Chinese government basically has control of every business that's in China. Now, France comes in at number 71, moderately free. Good old USA, we're number 18. We are mostly free. Singapore is the freest country in the world. They come in at number 2. And I go, well, wait a minute. If this is all the countries, Hong Kong is technically part of China, but until 2050, it's supposed to be operating under its own. And in 2018, before all of the rioting started and everything else, this last year and going into this year, Hong Kong was the number 1 freest capitalist area in the world. Why is China now the number 2 economy in the world when before 1995 they were kind of a economy that was being crushed? They couldn't provide for all their people. Well, as soon as Hong Kong came in, they started taxing the heck out of Hong Kong. So what they started to do is Hong Kong became the cash cow that drove the Chinese economy, and from there they found other people to go ahead and support China's economy. When we get into trade, we'll see that we're actually one of the countries that are helping support China and their growing economy. How did we go from 11th, because we were 11th in 2010, to 18th in 2018? Government involvement in the economy. This is the Affordable Care Act when it first came in. Now, there's been a lot of changes to it, and it may or may not stay and everything else. But this is why we went from 11th to 18th. Because the government all of a sudden took control of 1/7 of our economy. We went from private control to government control. So we went this direction on that curve. Now, to kind of give you an idea of that, there's patients. So that's us. There's our doctors. Everything in between is government. Everything in between is government. That's why we went from 11 to 18. Now, are there good things in the Affordable Care Act? You betcha. Are there some bad things? Absolutely. Are there some unintended consequences? Yes, again. But when we put this together, remember, the invisible hand goes away. All right, so this is what your note sheet should look like. And this takes us through the end of basic economic systems.